I was a free trade absolutist because I ethically, as a American and a Christian and a male, it rang so true to me that with free trade, with no restriction on goods and services and prices, merit and hard work will naturally rise, and you will have the best possible scenario for productivity and just everything that's great. It couldn't be more opposite. And by the way, all these people selling you on free trade, like the Ben Shapiro's and all these people, they're like, free trade. It's not tariffs are crazy, lower prices and blah, blah. They know something very evil that they're not telling you that is so obvious once you see it. Free trade also means free mobility of labor. And there's no way to detach from that. If you have free trade, like you have no restrictions on people exchanging goods for the lowest possible price, you also have to have the same system with people. And so when people are like, why won't the wall get built? Our biggest obstacle in America right now is demographics. It's constant flooding of millions of third world, unskilled, desperate, many times criminals coming into this country. And we think that there's just been this horrible misunderstanding that our guys will, that the Democrats just want votes and, our guys will come through. Republicans want it too. Because in free markets, you have to understand the worker willing to work for the cheapest amount wins. And so the American family will be replaced by the winner is the people willing to be degraded the most for a salary. Like people that, like right now, we've offshored our wage slaves in China, and all over the place. It's a race to the bottom. It's a setup where there is no possible way to have a family. When people say, well, you got to work harder, you're doing it to yourself, blah, blah. That's all insane. It's absolute slavery coupled with its own torture, ostracism, penalties, all that, except it's invisible to people that have a high sense of trust and truly don't think that people can be this evil. All these Guatemalans flooding our country and the constant degradation of white families in the media. Do you think this is all by accident? Do you think when the media constantly is like white privilege, male privilege, it's a way to break the spirit of the American family so that they choose to not have children, because it would be selfish to bring children into this world, so they can bring in people that are willing to work for nothing. And it's just about money. It isn't a grand conspiracy. It's dollars and cents. It's so cold. It's so lacking in even the passion of revenge that it's really hard for good people to see. High trust societies, especially European descendants and Americans, can't imagine that, because where we're from historically, genetically, traditionally, culturally, religiously, if you betray your own people, if you take money over your own people with lies and manipulation, you will be ostracized and then you will die in the winter. Like we always have had such a shared threat of winter and starvation that like the natural tendency for European descendants is to be very egalitarian. They paint us as these like wicked, bigot, racist, homophobe, we're intolerant. It's the exact opposite. We're the most tolerant people alive because your continued relationships with other people and your ability to even protect outsiders is absolutely necessary for survival, because your word is your bond. And then through that, you can withstand the winter. And then in these other areas, their traditions, genetics, cultures, everything comes from high abundance. They just have food everywhere and the weather doesn't really change much. So they don't have that same tendency of strict rules. Like the person who takes more than they should is a problem, because in the winter, you don't have more food. So with that in mind, you don't always comprehend how many people are willing to sell out their own people for more money. The fact that these free traders are intentionally not telling us that this influx of illegal immigrants is by design, and the result is already the destruction of the American family. And they go, well, you should work. And then this is how it happens. This is why a society that burns deserves it. As the quote unquote working class, the deplorables, all started losing their jobs to to illegal immigrants, right? We're talking, labor jobs. And then the people above them, only in their minds, by the way, are like, well, if you have a job that can be replaced by an illegal Mexican, then you don't have a very good job, right? And so apathy, and that's why they demean them and they call them deplorable when all they ask for is an ability to provide for their own family. And they're now in a position where their very valuable job is now worth peanuts, and they don't have a lot of options because of where they live. Then they would have to move to where the city is. What if all their family is there? What if they have roots there? What if that's where their garden is? They have to give it all up, right? They have to become literal wage slaves. And there's an illusion of choice when there is no choice. So then the next rung, the very people that called those people deplorable will be replaced again, right? And as they're losing their jobs and they're like, well, we need protection for the family, the people in a different category of society say, well, how could you not know that your financial advisory job wouldn't be replaced by AI? What are you, stupid? And they're like, but we have families. It's like, you're deplorable. You're a bigot race. And it keeps going up until basically what happens is everybody that protects those more vulnerable to them and stays with their logos and is committed to their nation, they either die an honorable death, they face a punishment that is not anything, or they stop it because it's not that strong, really, if you just are honest. And so that's why a lot of these failed places have a surprising amount of compliance and culpability. Notre Dame is burnt down. Oh, I know. And they deserve it. And it's absolutely expected because they were betrayed. If you have a society that has turned your back on your nation, your family, God, and for money, like your churches will burn. And they'll come up with excuses, construction fire. Yeah, because the people in the construction weren't from France, didn't care about France. They didn't value the cathedral to the point where saving a couple extra bucks, you now don't have the cathedral. As much as I find, people like Ben Shapiro, trickster, warmongering, disgusting little money rats, they're way less of a threat than your own people that you are conditioned to trust that trick you. So let's talk about the Three Little Pigs and what that means. Okay, the Three Little Pigs is a classic story about, and it's not, the moral of the story really isn't about building materials or about preparation, because it misses a whole thing. And this is the biggest problem with Americans, anybody from like a European Christian heritage, is we have a very, very hard time conceiving of betrayal as a very normal thing. This is a story about three pigs and a wolf. And the story is one pig builds his house out of hay and he takes a big nap. The next pig builds his house out of sticks. And he's like, it's a little better than the hay, but, I deserve a nice big nap. And the other pig spends all his time, slaving away, hauling bricks, and he builds a very strong house out of bricks. I'm summing this up because you know all this. So the wolf comes and he huffs and he puffs and he blows the straw down, and that little pig is like, oh no, he gets eaten all up by the wolf. And then the sticks, same thing. It's a little hard to blow down the sticks, eaten by the wolf. And then the bricks, the wolf can't blow it down, and that pig lives. And it's a story about preparing, and the pig in the bricks lives and the other two pigs die because they didn't prepare. Okay, that story on the surface is about preparing for the future. But in reality, I don't think people understand the depravity of human nature. The odd advantage that real Christian believers who understand evil have in this world is they understand the nature of evil and how human beings are fallen. And then until you accept that, you can't even begin to be good, right? So in the Three Little Pigs story, the moral of the story to the unsuspecting European is prepare with bricks. Make sure it's about building materials and hard work. That isn't the moral of the story. Do you know the most efficient thing you can possibly do in that story? You have 3 little pigs, right? So one pig builds his house out of stone and he slaves away and slaves away. The next pig builds his house out of sticks and he takes a nap. The third pig doesn't get anything. He just gets a knife and a plan. And as he's, talking to his other pigs buddies, he's like, oh, look at that brick house. He's like, oh, yeah, you should work a little harder. I'm worried about you and that wolf. And he's like, I'll get to work. And he's like, what are you up to? I'm going to come over. And the pig's like, oh, hey, buddy. And he turns, and that bit just stabs him in the throat, right? And the pig's bleeding out. He's like, but why? But why? And he's like, because now I have the brick house. And the other pig witnessed it, and now he's horrified. He's shocked. He has Stockholm syndrome. And the pig says, get on your knees, pig. And the pig says, but I don't want to. And he goes, the only way you can live through this, I now have the bricks and the knife. If you want to live through the wolf, you put on this chain. And so the pig's like, oh, okay, if that's the only way. And so now he's a slave. So now the moral of the story really is, the most financially and materially efficient with your time, with everything, is to build nothing, to acquire a knife, to commit betrayal, and then enslave another pig. That way, this pig now has a brick house, a slave. He's protected from the wolf, and now he has enough resources to get more brick houses that he can rent out to wage slaves. This got dark. Oh, life is dark, guys. Okay, so there's more morality to this story. So what the key to this story is understanding the second pig, the sticks pig. That's when society will fail or survive. So the first pig has committed betrayal, which is the ultimate sin, where his fellow pigs trust him that they're all in a group and that their enemy is the wolf, and they trust that they're all just trying to build their houses, and if their house isn't strong enough, the penalty is, it sucks, but maybe they can work together. So that pig has committed the act of betrayal, and he's murdered the guy whose lack of defense was his weakness. The pig with the sticks is now confronted with a moral conundrum. Does he accept slavery, or does he let the pig, or does he face the wolf? The answer is he faced the wolf. And that's logically, and everything about that is the right answer, because once you kneel to the psychopathic pig with the knife that took the brick house, you're owned, and now you let that pig get more power, which will end up spreading to all the pigs until every other pig that has made the strategic mistake of not comprehending the nature of evil and betrayal will lose everything. So that the hero would be the pig that says, I will never kneel to you or put on your chains, pig. You got that brick house because you betrayed our own people. I will fight the wolf. And so now you have a pig that's standing outside when the wolf comes, and maybe the wolf respects it. Maybe the wolf looks at that pig and goes, yeah, I know I could take you, pig, but I'm an opportunist, and I can probably I can scavenge in the woods. And so that sticks guy goes and talks to the other pigs, and they say, hey, other pigs. And they're like, are you working hard to build the brick house? He goes, guys, we have a problem. We got a pig that murdered Gary and stole his house. And this is what people don't understand about the high trust, scarcity culture. When they understand that there's been betrayal, things get very brutal. Macron in France. Macron in France is way more evil than the Muslims in France. The Muslims in France are part of the story, but they're in France to make money. The deception, the betrayal, the reason that their Notre Dame Cathedral is burning to the ground is because the people who said they were French, they said they were the leaders, sold them as slaves. My buddy Ryan is currently in a profession that has been rocked by free trade. Okay, he's a truck driver who owns his own truck, and he's a hardworking, honorable family man, 4 children, works hard, will do anything for his friends, right?